Hello, I'm Marilla Sargent, Vice President and Branch Manager of the Montlake Terrace office of Home Street Bank. Home Street Bank is proud to sponsor these videos, which will help the voters make an informed choice in the November elections.
Welcome to Vote 2017. I'm Teresa Whipple, your host, and we are here today with Councilmember Kristiana Johnson, who is running for re-election to position number 1 on the Edmonds City Council. Welcome.
Thank you, Teresa. This is a really good opportunity for the voters to get to know us all.
Yeah, I'm really glad you're here. And we're going to talk a little bit about several different issues related to the City of Edmonds. But before we do that, I think it would be great for you to share some background about your long history in the city.
Yes, I do have a long history, as you know. My family moved here in 1954, so I've been associated with Edmonds my whole life. And I've lived in the town myself about 40 years.
Right.
What's interesting is my whole career has been based around government. I've worked for city, county, and state government in the area of planning and transportation. And it just seems to dovetail with my retirement and helping the city of Edmonds. I've spent the last 10 years really working for the city on the Planning Commission, Transportation Commission, and various other boards and studies. And for the past 5.5 years, I've been on the Edmonds City Council. And I'd like to continue so I can continue to do that work.
Yeah. And talk a little bit about why. What is it that has inspired you to seek re-election? What things would you like to accomplish next?
Well, I really have 3 things that I want to work on. First of all, I want to support the arts. I want to do a lot more for the arts. We're known as the arts community, and that's where I want to put a lot of my effort. And secondly, I want to help the environment. We are located on such a treasure, Puget Sound, and we have all of our lakes and streams that empty into the Sound. And I think we can do a much better job of protecting those assets. And finally, I really like the history of this town, and I want to do more to protect its historic preservation and to, keep the areas that are really important to us, like the downtown.
Yeah, and I know you have spoken about that at various places I've heard you talk about, and sometimes I think we all who've lived here a while get a little sad when we see a lot of older buildings coming
Yes.
down and new buildings coming up, so history is definitely a passion of mine as well. So what do you believe as you look at the city right now? What do you think are the top 3 issues facing Edmonds right now?
Well, I think redevelopment, we're seeing that all over town. And some of the very small houses are being bulldozed to put up 3 or 4 houses. So we're under a lot of growth and development pressure, and it's affecting us throughout the town. I see real potential for growth on the SR 104 and 99 corridors. And as I mentioned before, I think we need to do a much better job of protecting our wild areas and our critical areas in town.
Okay. All right. And when we talk about Highway 99, certainly that is a very exciting development recently.
Yes.
The council did approve a plan for redeveloping Highway 99. In fact, those who are familiar with the shoreline part of Highway 99 probably know that that changed the look of the highway altogether, and there's some thought that perhaps some of that may be replicated in what we do. What do you, now that we're kind of getting to the next stage of planning for what that might look like, I think it's probably important to tell people this isn't going to happen overnight. It's going to take many, many years. But tell me what kind of your vision and thought is for what you're hoping that highway will look like when it's completed.
Well, I think Shoreline is a good visual example. They began that work, maybe 10, 20 years ago, and it was hard to communicate what that could be like for Edmonds. But now we have a stellar example, and it's a combination of improving the land use and the transportation. We want to make it more walkable, safer, and increase housing opportunities along that corridor, both employment and housing. So I think that's a real opportunity. It's sort of where we can expect a tremendous amount of growth in the city without impacting too many neighborhoods. There are provisions that protect the neighborhoods, but that's an area where it's underdeveloped right now.
Yes, and I think that's something that people will probably be expecting, is that there will be taller buildings and some things we haven't necessarily seen in Edmonds proper, in terms of the downtown core anyway. So
Right.
that will be a change for people. And along the lines of housing, an issue that has come up a lot lately, it seems, is the issue of affordable housing.
Yes.
And I know that's a kind of a tricky term, because what's affordable to one person might not be affordable to another, but it's certainly a concern for a lot of people, is how do we make sure that we have some housing that people can afford at various stages of their lives. And what is your thought about, how the city might be able to help with that?
Well, one of the things that we have recently passed is an opportunity for low and moderate income housing. And this would allow a 12-year deferral on the taxes that a developer would pay on those units that provide low and moderate income housing. 10% low, 10% moderate. It's a modest savings, but it does allow for a variety of income levels. And it's important in a corridor like 99, where we have the hospital, we have a lot of hospital workers, and we need to provide opportunities for those people who work there to be able to live in the corridor. And also we have the SWIFT, which has 3 main terminals on 99. And so that's really a good opportunity also, where people can live without having to rely on a car for all of their transportation needs.
Right, and that's for some, if nobody knows what SWIFT is, I can't imagine anybody doesn't, but it is the transit, the rapid transit
Yes.
line that goes relatively quickly down Highway 99 and goes
Yes.
all the way to Everett.
Yes.
So it's a very well-used transit line. Okay, well, let's talk about, just in terms of, this is another big issue that the council has dealt with in recent years, and that is related to the Edmonds Marsh.
Right.
And you and I were talking off camera about this a little bit. You really were very vocal about this issue because, the council was discussing the kind of the future of the marsh in the context of the Shoreline Master Program, which is a required element that the city needs to pass for the Department of Ecology to approve and all of
Yes.
that. And as part of that, there was quite a discussion about what should happen to the Harbor Square development, which the Port of Edmonds operates, and some discussion about, the majority of the council approved a shoreline master program that basically allowed for wider buffers at the marsh, allowed for what those of you who approved it thought
Right.
was protection. Maybe against some development issues and runoff and things like that. But there was a minority of the council who went ahead and expressed their own opinions separately to the Department of Ecology, and I know you weren't happy about that, and you said so.
Yes.
And there was some tension on the council as a result of that. And I guess I would just like to say, without dredging up all of the old politics and feelings, but do you feel, now that that's been over for a few months, do you feel like the relationships on the council are better now and that everybody's moving forward from that?
Well, one of the rules that we have on the council is we're not supposed to have surprises.
Yeah.
So it was a complete surprise that a group of minority members of the council got together and wrote this opinion without expressing it to the council. So that was a problem, and we weren't sure exactly how we wanted to handle it. Whether it's right or wrong, as a council, we have to work together. And I was council president during that period of time, and we had, 4 people that were newly elected. So I thought maybe they didn't know what the rules were. The Supreme Court has minority opinions, but other than that, they're not usually sent to the Department of Ecology. And so I brought in our parliamentarian expert, Ann McFarland. We could have censured the people, but I chose to go a gentler way, one that would serve to educate and be firm at the same time, because there was a feeling that nothing was wrong, that they had the right to express their opinion. But as I said before, we're working together as a team. And I think that we've all learned from that experience. And I think this year we're getting along better after that. And part of it is that, the Shoreline Master Program was a very long and convoluted process.
Could I just say that's an understatement?
Yes.
What was it, 3 or 4 years
Oh,
that
no,
went on?
no,
Longer than
It
that.
was like 6 to 10 years. Because I was on the planning board when we
That's
first
right, yeah.
started looking at that. And part of the problem is while we were getting to the end, the Department of Ecology changed their rules. And it was my investigation that found that they had changed the rules. And everyone was posturing. The port was posturing and the city was posturing, but in the end we have to follow the rules. And although Harbor Square is an older development, there aren't rules for absolutely everything. That's why we came to an agreement that we're going to use the Department of Ecology setbacks and buffers. And we're going to study it more thoroughly for local conditions so that we can decide how best to proceed if and when there is development.
Right.
So we're doing a baseline study this year.
Right, and you were talking about that recently, I know, and that's in process right now to select a consultant
Yes.
to be able to do that. And along the lines of the Port of Edmonds, a follow-up question with that would be, there seems to me to have been a fair amount of tension between the port and the city for a variety of reasons, but it all seems to come down to kind of the future of that Harbor Square development and the marsh, and the port has different ideas about maybe what should be done there than the city does, or at least the city council. And what do you see as perhaps a possible solution to maybe kind of mitigating some of that tension, or is there a solution? Is it a natural tension that just needs to happen?
Well, we do have different roles in the
Yes.
city. As you know, the city council determines land use, zoning, things like that. And the port is responsible for economic development and environmental protection of their properties. And there's a lot of history there, but I really feel that good communication amongst the different port members and city council is essential, because we can't dig in and take strong positions, because then we'd all end up in court. So I'm really happy that despite the fact that we were posturing and we haven't gone to court. We've agreed to work together. So I think only good things will happen in the future. I think we hit the impasse and now we can move forward.
Okay, that's good news, I think, for everybody, and the taxpayers too.
I think
Nobody
so.
wants to go to court. That's
No.
expensive, and
Yeah.
Okay, very good. All right, well, let's talk about a completely different issue, but one that, again, the council spent a lot of time on and was fairly emotional, and that is the crumb rubber ban that the council passed and extended recently because it was scheduled to sunset. And basically, that's the type of infill that is being used on playfields that the city has placed a ban on. And as you know, there were a lot of emotions on both sides of that issue, and it is scheduled to end in February of 2018. Do you have any, is it too early to say, or do you have any sense yet about where the council might land on extending that? Has there been any research that's come out lately on it that you're aware of?
I think we're all taking a wait and see attitude. The initial issue came up when the school board wanted to redevelop the Woodway Fields.
Right.
And the school board owned the property, but it was located in the city of Edmonds. And although this wasn't a city council issue, the citizens took it up and began using their 3 minutes of speaking
Yes.
week after week and informing us of all of their research and opinions. And, we were just overwhelmed by all the passion and information. And finally, we had to say, we don't know enough about this subject. That's why the city council voted on a moratorium. and it's become a nationwide issue, not just for the city of Edmonds or Snohomish County, but there really is a lack of clarity about what the issues are related to crumb rubber. There's anecdotal information about soccer players, particularly goalies, and the incidence of cancer, but there aren't a lot of scientific studies. So the EPA and the Centers for Disease Control have been doing these studies for us, but until we get the information, we can't really take a position. One of the things I'm concerned about, not just the impact to human health, but also the environmental health, because these fields are upstream from where all of our fish and wildlife are. So we need to also test the waters and find out whether there's impact before and after.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens, because I'm not sure if the EPA is going to move very quickly right now. I mean, Washington, things seem to be a little stuck in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
So who knows if anything is going to come out of there anytime soon. And then, of course, the school district itself has their own issues. Somebody was telling me the other day that there's a baseball field at Edmonds Woodway High School that is planned for next year, that if they were going to do it, it would be some kind of artificial turf. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that and what the council decides to do.
Well, the Edmonds School District's policy is they like uniform crumb rubber.
Yes.
But as I said before, the city gets to make the rules.
You get to decide if it's in the
Yes.
city of Edmonds, yeah. Okay. Well, we'll stay tuned on that one.
Yeah.
Well, now we've reached the part of the program where you have an opportunity to actually talk directly to the voters and tell them why you should be reelected to another term. So,
Thank you.
my guest.
Well, it's been a real honor to serve the city of Edmonds for the past 5.5 years. And whenever I make decisions, I try to keep in mind the 41,000 people that we represent. We have a large, diverse community, and I've really enjoyed the variety of issues that we get to consider on the city council. What I bring to this office is a background in city and regional planning, and I believe I have the skills to be able to evaluate all the information and make an informed decision. And I'm always available to the citizens if they wish to contact me either by phone or email. Basically, anytime, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., I'll answer the telephone. And I'd encourage you to participate in the election process and make an informed decision. And I would love the opportunity to be your representative for the next 4 years. And my promise is no one will work harder for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in,
Thank you.
Kristiana. I really wish you the best of success in
Okay.
November.
All right. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
you bet.